Are you ready to learn what red flags keep an eye out for when looking for love?
Then we got you covered. I'm Brianna.
And I'm Alex.
And this is the podcast where we unpack reality TV and call out the bullshit.
So that you show up confidently while dating and in relationships. Welcome to Ditch the Script.
I love it.
Hi.
Hi.
That was fun.
Yeah, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We had a dance break.
A silent dance break.
Have you ever done a silent disco?
No, well, okay, wait, hold on. Pump the brakes. So high school grad night, there was that. But I just watched because it was fascinating to me. I didn't participate.
Yeah, it definitely seems like a fun thing to watch. A little awkward, but like really good, like people watching.
Exactly, because it's like everyone is in their own vibe and you're just it's like being at a zoo.
Yeah. Yeah, I can appreciate it has zoo properties.
Yeah, like low-key watching mating season.
Yeah. What's interesting about that is that, because like silent disco, for anyone who hasn't done this before, it's like you have headphones and everyone has a pair of headphones and there's like either 2 or 3 different stations that you can tune into. So not everyone is always listening to the same music. So generally everything's like pretty quiet as far as like a crowd that size goes. So Alex, while you're watching this, you must have heard like, it's obviously quieter than like people out at like a bar or something, but you must have heard some noises coming from people.
Oh yeah. There were people singing and it was hilarious because there's no shame because like you can't hear. So
no one can
people
hear.
are like singing and then you do have the like people trying to talk and like, you know, like react to one another. It's just, like I said, it's literally like watching a version of Planet Earth, but human version.
Ooh, that sounds like
It's a good time.
I want to do that. That would be like a great alternative wedding.
Yes. I had the most recent time back when I was managing these wedding estates, we have like a noise ordinance in Palm Springs. So like after 10 p.m., the decibels need to be under a certain amount, whatever. So one of the things a lot of our brides considered was a silent disco, but none of them did it because of the awkward factor of that, of like, well, if I take my headphones off to go to get a drink, I'm going to be hearing this weird random situation. And I'm like, honestly, it's not that bad. Like people accept it for what it is. You know what I mean? Like there's no judgment. It's just funny. You know?
Yeah, and I think like per your experience, like, okay, so you take off your headphones, you go get a drink, and then you get to watch everyone like be really silly without the judge. I think that that's great.
Yeah, me too. Like I'm about it. I think it's fun. I mean, I love people watching in general.
Yeah.
When I was working at Disney, this was something I would do. I would go into the park before a shift and just sit on Main Street and like watch people come into the park and like what's that like. I'm a weirdo like that, you know.
Oh my gosh,
I'm a scientist in another life.
you're a human behavioral scientist.
I love it. Like Vanessa Van Edwards, I don't know if you know her work, but her lab is literally called The Science of People. And I would die to just like have a day and like shadow that woman and just to like be a fly on the wall in her world as she like literally studies people. I think we're interesting animals.
We are interesting animals. I think that like, listen, people are the best. They're only the worst when they're being the worst.
Exactly. So just don't be the worst.
Don't be the worst. Good. Yeah. Actually, I had a moment today. I was getting my car washed and it was literally like a sand pit. So it needed to get vacuumed. Like the whole thing needed to happen. And this guy, while I'm waiting for that to be done, this guy comes up to me and he just trauma dumps on me. Immediately, like it wasn't even like a hi. He was like, I'm having the worst day ever. And I am not someone... Despite what I do for work, I'm actually not someone who's super like warm and welcoming to people when they start doing shit like that. I'm usually like,
I don't know you like that.
I don't know you.
Time.
Yeah, I'm usually like, sorry, dude, sucks. Like, I hope you have a better day. I'm never like, oh my God, what's going on? How are you? Like, I'm not getting paid. Fact.
Yeah.
The fact is, I'm not getting paid right now. I'm off the clock. So, yeah. So I'm seriously, my ego doesn't need it. I'll be honest. Yeah. But then he literally, like, without warning, without an introduction, and without the support of me, he trauma dumped on me. And then, but it was all in, I'll spare you the fucking details because I honestly have no idea what he was talking about. But it all was in this effort to support that he was, like, he's having such a shitty day and a shitty life. And so he wanted to come here and, quote, give back. And his version of giving back in this scenario was tipping the staff that work at this car wash $100. And I was like, you're a real piece of shit.
Yeah.
I didn't say that to him. I wish I did. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm happy that they got a $100 tip. But it's like people who go out of their way to make them seem like good people or better people than they are, and like get on some megaphone platform and brag about it, whether it's, I guess it's on social. I feel like people do this on social media a lot more. Y'all, honestly, y'all need to get put away somewhere, on a commune, on a farm. Go away. Go be shitty together. We'll keep your money. I'll keep your money. I mean, I won't keep their money. Everyone else can keep your money, but go away.
Yes. This is actually something that I've talked about quite a lot recently. So this is an interesting theme that the universe brought us here for this conversation today. Mm-hmm. But this happened with my narcissistic ex. And this was the first time where I was like, this is weird. And I'm not saying this guy's a narcissist, but I hear you on like this humble brag, like, I mean, me. I'm such a great person. Look at what I'm doing today. Like, oh my gosh. If it's true, if it's with the true intent of generosity, you wouldn't need to brag about it. You wouldn't need to get on a megaphone and tell the world about it, right?
Exactly.
So, give yourself that validation, okay?
Yeah, and also it's very white savior. It's a very white saviorship. So,
oh my gosh,
close it up. Yeah. Okay, so this was happening, and what happened? What did you do?
Yeah, let me tell you, because this is actually kind of a freaking hilarious story. And this was towards, like, I would say midway through when I was kind of getting sus to the pattern. I was like, this is interesting. So, if you are familiar with me, this isn't going to be a surprise. If you're not super familiar with my story, this took place during a time in my life when I was very much still going to church actively. And so there was the youth pastor at this church, and he started going with me and, like, was trying to really get involved and, like, play the part as narcissistic folks do.
Yeah.
And he was really trying to butter up the youth pastor, and the church was kept, like, freezing cold. So he decides to not tell anyone. He just pieces out, runs over to Costco, get this guy that doesn't know his name, right? Gets this youth pastor a hoodie, comes back, gives it to Jake, or tries to give it to Pastor Jake. Uh-huh. And unfortunately, Jake was actually giving the sermon that day, so wasn't available to receive said gift. So leaves, like, a note on it and says, like, from Chris. The funny thing is later, Pastor Jake goes to get the jacket, has no idea who the hell Chris is. Okay. And what ends up happening is Chris then goes and tells the entire church, I'm the one that went and got Jake the sweater, everybody. This was me. This was my thing. He was complaining about how cold he was before. And so I just needed to go do this thing for him. And it was like, oh my God, it was that. It was literally the same situation where, like, Jake didn't need that. He has full control over the AC in that building because he has the keys. He's got the keys to the AC. So he went ahead and just fixed that for himself. But because he was really trying to get in with the in crowd there, he, like, did this whole thing. So anyway, and then has to go and, like, tell everyone this story about, like,
I got him a sweatshirt. That was me. You see that sweatshirt?
And he was like, who is this person? I don't even know who this person is. That's a little weird.
Yeah, when you were there and this was happening, how were you making sense of this in your brain?
It's kind of like how I am now. Like,
you're like, what's...
yeah, like that. Like a little, like, awkward laugh. Like, okay, yeah, agree. But also, like, unnecessary.
What's your purpose? Yeah.
Yeah. Like, that was a love bombing tactic,
Yeah.
Like, unnecessary.
It's nice to do nice things for people.
Yes.
And what makes it nice is telling no one about it. Just doing it. You don't need to tell people. You don't need to get on and be like, I saw someone and I saw that they needed help. And so I helped them. And it just reminded me that, like, be kind to everyone. Like, shut the fuck up. Honestly, shut the fuck up. Go be kind to people. Dude. Like, and that's fine. Like, if you want to get on some, like, you want to feel inspired and tell people to be kind with each other, leave whatever your actions are out of it. Tell people, like, hey, it's Father's Day. Tough day for some people. Be nice to people around you. It doesn't have to be like, and I saw this woman at the supermarket and she said she didn't have a dad. Be nice to people. It's like, just be nice to people and close it up. Shut your mouth.
We learned that in kindergarten. Don't we treat others the way you want to be treated? Isn't that called like the golden rule?
Yeah,
doesn't like
it is.
Every room have that plastered on there in elementary school?
Yeah, right. That's true. Yeah, it's tough, like, and I think that this shows up in people, like, that need to, like, show others, like, this is what I did a good thing.
You want to know what wound that is? Sorry.
Yeah, tell me. No, that's where I was headed. Tell me.
See me.
Yeah,
see me.
Exactly. Because I was going to say, it's not just, like, narcissists. It's, like, other people who are much more emotionally available are just sort of like, like, I want to be validated. I want to be seen. And if this is something that you can recognize in yourself, we're certainly not shaming you. We're not trying to make you feel like shit. This is something that I'm certain that I have done in the past. Like, I can guarantee it. However, it's like, if you're recognizing this is something that you do, you tend to do, like, you're just going to ask yourself, like, when I think about posting something like this, what am I hoping to get out of it?
Exactly.
What purpose is this trying to serve? You can be, like, curious about it. You don't have to be super judgmental. What purpose is it trying to serve? Am I really hoping that someone will comment it and make me feel good? The thing is that once people do respond to it, it's like, it doesn't hit the way that you think it does. You think it's gonna.
No. And what ends up happening is it fuels the need for that kind of addiction, like that hunger for it even more, because you think if I just got more of it, then it would really feel good. And it's like, you got to get it from within yourself. You got to be like, you know what, you did a good, like, talk to yourself. Maybe that's why I talk in third person. I feel for April, but I don't do it as much as she does today's episode. Really, I was dying laughing. I was like, okay, I don't do it that much.
We're gonna get into it. We're gonna get into it.
When we sit down and we just, like, take a moment to be like, you know what, like, I'm gonna acknowledge the good thing that I did today for the sake of doing a good thing, and, like, go me. Like, give yourself that pat on the back instead of like, I need to tell other people about it so people know how good of a person I am.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that, because I don't want it to seem like you shouldn't do good things and shouldn't recognize, like, the good things that, like, you could do, but, like, give it to yourself. Let your, like, be proud. Like, you should take in stock of being kind to other people without having to get a reward in response, or, like, you're not getting anything out of it. Like, you reflect on the day and be like, that felt really good. And I hope that felt good for this other person. Like, you can have that conversation with yourself. I don't need to see it on my timeline. That's all.
No. Nope. Yeah, it kind of goes back, like, just to hit home what you were saying, like, because all of us have done this at some point. I think a lot of us grow out of this in time. But for the adults that are maybe listening to this and they're like, oh, whoops, I did that this week. Okay, well, now you know better. And kind of touching on what we talked about last week, it's like, when we do things with this ulterior motive, right, to be seen, like, I'm going to be gracious or generous to be seen. That's a form of manipulation, right? So and the reason I wanted to bring that up is, it doesn't mean that you're a narcissistic person. It does mean that there's an ulterior motive that's really shedding light on a wound that you need to resolve for yourself. Really, that's all that is. So,
point blank, period. Love that. Okay, the reunion, final episode of Netflix's The Ultimatum. Yeah, finally. Oh, wowee. Wowee.
Wowee wah. Yeah.
Where do you want to even start? Oh, God. Well, I honestly, like, I can't move forward without talking about Madeline being pregnant. I can't.
Okay. Yeah.
I can't.
She preggers with a girl, y'all.
Yep. She's like 7 months pregnant. So I'm curious of when they filmed the reunion. It must have been obviously more recently, but when they wrapped the show, it was like winter. So they must have gotten pregnant immediately.
Yeah. Yeah, like assuming they filmed the reunion like what, a month ago? I don't know when they filmed
Yeah,
it.
I guess
So
so. I don't know.
she might be popping right about now.
Oh yeah, probably. I'm surprised, and maybe they did this out of respect for the fact that they have a child on the way, which I'm just really thinking about now. I'm just surprised that they didn't grill the two of them a lot more than they did. Like they were waiting. They were waiting to get to Madeline and Colby, and no one was grilled.
No. No. I mean, I
I was
think
frustrated.
I think it's what you said. I think out of preservation for their marriage and their kid, they like didn't want to be like, so tell us what the hell that was about, you crazy people. Um, yeah. So, peace be with you.
I have
You too.
if you could have asked one or both of them a question at this reunion, regardless of them being married and them being pregnant, what would you have liked to ask them?
Colby, have you found a way to admit your wrongs?
Mm,
How has that been
that's
going?
good.
How is the growth there? Have you found a way to take ownership and responsibility for your part of the issue, your hand in the issues in this
Yeah,
relationship?
absolutely.
Yeah.
I probably would have asked Madeline. I think that I don't know if it would have been a question, more of an observation of like, it really seemed like you really didn't want to be in this relationship. And I guess she spoke a little bit about this where she was like, I I thought that I thought that by choosing Colby, I was going to lose myself. But I really do think her instinct was probably a little right about that. Maybe not in the ways that she's reflecting on now,
No.
as far as like her personality, but I think this is my perspective, my lens. So we take this with a grain of salt. But when I hear
Right.
someone in that relationship with someone like Colby say, I feared that if I chose this person, if I chose Colby, I'd be losing myself. My perspective is you'd be losing your right to like own your reality, own your truth, have your truth be respected in conflict, in general
Agree.
communication. And that to me is stifling and suffocating enough to make me feel like I'm losing myself.
I'm really excited about this topic. Oh
Okay,
my God. Because here's the
let's
deal.
go.
Oh my God. So Madeline, in her default setting, from the language she's using, she sounds, and I've said this multiple times already, but I'm going to say it again, avoidantly attached. Okay. And here's
Mm-hmm.
why. Avoidants tend to hyperfixate on why the relationship won't work. They tend to feel like being all in a relationship equals losing oneself. That's like the exact verbiage if you looked at, if you were going to diagnose someone with avoidant attachment, which technically isn't a thing. It's just more of an
Right.
observation of like, this is how you
Yeah.
attach. Okay.
They're patterns. They're
Um,
patterns.
yeah, patterns. And so we need to be very understanding of the difference between this feeling of being avoidantly attached, this fear around losing oneself versus true self betrayal. Those are
Mm.
two different things, right? So,
Yeah.
yes, Madeline is like, she has this conscious idea of like relationship, long term commitment means Madeline can't be true to Madeline, right? Like she has
Right.
this idea that a long-term relationship means she's going to have to give up aspects or compromise or whatever, and that's uncomfortable. But as you said, and I completely agree with you, her intuitive being and her body was quite literally pushing Colby away in multiple instances in this show, not just because of this idea of like long-term commitment equals losing a part of myself or having to compromise, but because deep down, as she so eloquently put it the night before she married this guy's ass, what kind of woman would I be to be in a relationship with someone who can't take ownership of their part in this? That's self betrayal. And I think that when you don't understand the difference of like, is this me? Like where your own self-sabotage starts and stops versus someone else's red flags, that's a huge issue that's going to show up. And so I'm with you. And I think it's important for us to like take this moment to educate our audience on the differences there, because without that awareness of like, is this my own fear? Is this me wanting to relationship hop because I'm scared of fully investing? I'm scared of fully being in a commitment with someone, which means I need to compromise, which means I need to step up into a different way of being. Or is it this relationship, this person causes me to take over responsibility for their actions? They shift blame on me, which means in order for me to keep the peace in this relationship, I'm not able to stay true to myself. Ooh, two totally different ball games.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder if she's ever going to have any insight on that for herself in her experience.
Time will tell. Time will tell.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting. I think like some of the things that we've been really coming at Colby for on our show, it really didn't come up a whole lot in the recap and the reunion. And I don't even think that there were enough opportunities to see Colby like do weird, like too charismatic, too like face saving Colby type behavior. So I'm left feeling a little bit like he just sort of got off scot-free, and I don't love that.
Yeah, same. And unfortunately that happens, I feel, way too often with these types because they are so charming, you know? Like,
yeah, definitely.
It's an interesting thing to witness. It really is, because it's like,
yeah.
Go ahead.
We were also seeing Nick and Vanessa Lachey sort of they were using, and they do this a lot. I've seen them do this on the other shows that they're in, but like they used their relationship as sort of like the norm. And they use their relationship to sort of fill in the gaps of the other like, quote, successful or like, you know, out of the norm stages of all of these couples and their relationships. They're using their relationship to relate to each person's scenario. And I just think that that's a bit reckless, a bit irresponsible, because, you know, like, first of all, I don't know anything about your relationship outside of the fact that you guys have been together for like, you know, a decade or two. To me, good for you. I don't know what that means exactly. I don't know if your relationship is actually like the standard. I don't think that anyone's relationship is the standard.
Exactly.
So, yeah, and so I think like they were just using their relationship and asking a lot of leading questions that made it easy for all of the different couples to sort of be like, yeah, exactly, like our journey is our journey, and it's like, it was just, I didn't care for it. That's all.
Yeah, I think the issue, and this happens a lot with couples, because like we all get into this comparison on like, is this normal? OMG. Like we all feel that we need to make our relationship fit this societal norm, which, by the way, who the hell created that? Hollywood. So it's like, what is a true relationship look like? Guess what, guys? It's normal if you sleep in the same bed. It's normal if you live in two different houses. It's normal if you have two different bedrooms. It's normal if you have sex once a week. It's normal if you have sex every day, twice a day. It's normal. It's all freaking normal. What's not normal is abusive tendencies. And that's really the only thing we need to be on the lookout for. And let's get out of our heads about this quote unquote standard that if we're in a healthy relationship, this is what it should look like. It should look like whatever you're freaking comfortable with, which is going to be different for every single couple.
That's a good point.
You know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, I'm with you. I can't.
We had a couple of throwback couples that came onto the show that left really early. Like we had Hunter. Me too. Nate and Lauren. And then we had Hunter and Alexis. Hunter and Alexis are still engaged. I appreciated hearing Alexis's reflection on like, I think her tune changed a little bit as far as like her expectations for like the way that finances are done, like the man bringing in a lot of money and like whatever. Like she had this perspective where she was like, the way that Hunter is and the things that he does, like our finances can be equal because everything else that he brings to the table is like everything that I need. And I appreciated that. Do you have anything else to say on them?
I mean, no, I think Alexis is hilarious because she needs to know the tea. Like, I was dying when she was like, so wait, are you together or not? Like, or whatever the thing was when she interjected, she was like, excuse me, so like, what's the answer to the question?
Yeah.
You know, I think she's just spicy in that way. Like, she's very much comfortable. And props to her for being comfortable in who she is and being like that. You know what I mean? Like, I get that.
On a show.
On a show, yeah, like she's very castable because of that.
Very,
you know, and I really liked that Hunter was speaking up for himself a bit more, because I feel like Alexis takes up a lot of space in that relationship, and Hunter allows her to do that. But sometimes I wonder if Hunter is allowed to be as expressive, and I got to see that more from him today. Like, especially when he was like, "Oh, you were asking Alexis, not me, this question," because he like started, chiming in for her, and he was like, "Yeah, we talk for each other all the time," like kind of being self-deprecating, and like I appreciated seeing that in their relationship, because I was honestly, when he proposed to her, I was a little concerned that it was like a dictatorship type dynamic with their relationship. So I was happy to see a little bit more of a balance, which, similar to what you were saying on the finances, it sounds like moving in together was a shift that I would have, if I was in Vegas betting on this relationship, I would have put money on the fact that moving in together would have blown their relationship up, and I would have been wrong. It seems like it actually forced them to humble themselves and kind of find a balance, so.
And I'm glad that worked out for them. They needed to not be on the show. They needed to not be on the show.
Yeah. And then we have Nate and Lauren, which, like I said, completely forgot about Nate. I wrote that in my notes. I was like, I forgot about this dude.
Yep.
And, there's one thing in there that he said that I actually liked, which, I want to give him this gold star. And they were asking him about the proposal, like, you still needed to figure out this kids thing, and that's what Alexis was like, so are you having kids or not? That's what it was,
right?
I remembered. Anyway, getting back to what I was saying, when Nate expresses, I finally got to a point that I would rather be with Lauren than have kids. I was like, that's okay, here we go. And this is what I mean by when I say we need to be open to influence. It's like, what is your core value? Is your core value being a mom? Is your core value having a solid partnership? Is it like, at the end of the day, and I don't mean like we only have one core value. I guess I should say, what's your priority, right? So like for me, my priority is a relationship. I want to find an amazing relationship that's like my best friend, we're two peas in a pod, we get along, sex is great, all of that, like, they can read me like a book, they know what I need, whatever, right? And vice versa. However, I have clients and I have people in my life where their priority is being a parent. And so whether they find the right relationship or not, they are making steps, whether that's freezing their eggs, adoption, or in some cases, quite literally having a planned birth without necessarily the relationship aspect, because their heart lies in taking care of another's soul. And that's amazing too. Yeah. And so when Nate is like, I had to kind of figure out like what matters more to me, this woman who I love or babies, what would I rather live without? And he was like, I'd rather be with Lauren without the kids than have kids with someone else that isn't Lauren. And that's huge. So I appreciated him sharing that, because I think every couple gets to a point in their relationship where they kind of have to look, and it might not be with kids. It might be with something else. Like I'm going to use a really silly example, but this will hit home with some people. It's like, if you're a very cleanly person, but you fall desperately in love with someone who just can't get their boxers into the hamper for some reason, it's like, what are you going to prioritize? Yeah.
It's my nightmare.
Are you going to prioritize the love that you have for this soul because of all the other wonderful things they add to your life? Or do you really need a partner who gets their shit into the hamper? Right? So Bree's gonna
Can I
sit
train
with
them
that
like
question.
can I train them like a dog? Can I be like, oh, that's so good. Yay.
Yes, absolutely. Positive reinforcement is a thing. You might make like a fun little bet or like a tit for tat. Like, I'll put your hampers in if you always clean the toilet or something.
This is
Go ahead.
borderline manipulative, but one of my favorite things to do, I'm going on the record with some self-awareness that it could be problematic. One of my favorite things to do is to tell men that I'm seeing that there's something that I want them to do more of or less of. I tell them it's really hot when you.
See, I don't think that's manipulative at all.
You don't think so? I mean, I guess it is hot when you do the things that I want you to do.
Yeah, I think it would be manipulative if it wasn't genuine. But like for me, like I think it's really sexy seeing a man wash dishes. I am like,
ooh,
oh my God. Yeah.
Right,
like,
right. Like a lot.
Could have done it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Like the thought of having a man do my dishes is like, oh my
totally.
God.
There are so many like isolated behaviors that are not sexual in nature that can be hot, right? Like if I come home, I live with no one but my dog. But if I was living with someone and I came home and they knew that I was working really late or that like I was doing something out of the house a lot longer than planned, and I came home and they'd like cleaned the kitchen and they'd made dinner hot.
God. Yeah, you would be getting laid that evening.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. You folded the laundry.
Oh my God.
Your dick's going to get sucked.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Done.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, I think that's a healthy way to communicate because you're very much expressing like, not only does this make me happy, it makes me horny. And if that's the genuine like reaction you have, what you're telling the truth. Now, if you're like, it would make me really horny if you would pay all the bills on time and you don't really have that kind of reaction when someone pays the bills on time, then don't say that. Be like, hey, I'd really appreciate it. I would be grateful. It would make it a little bit easier because I take care of X, Y, and Z. You know, but
that's useful. That's useful.
Yeah.
I'm going to take this moment to rebrand our podcast. It's still going to be Ditch the Script, but our subtitle is going to be On the Corner of Happy and Horny.
Yes, I love it. We should add that. Can we have 2 subtitles?
We can.
Oh my gosh.
I love that. Okay, so yeah, I think that when we saw Nate waffling before he proposed, I think that if I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, I do think that he wanted to be with Lauren, and I do think that his priority of being with Lauren and having kids was just neck and neck, and I don't think that he was mature enough to be able to consider the sacrifice of like, okay, I'm ready to not have kids in order to be with this person, and similarly not mature enough to consider that like you can't deal with the quote kids issue after you get married. Like those things are, I was just going to say stupid. It's immature. So what I think his waffling that we saw on the show in that moment when he was like gonna pick Madeline because April chose Hunter and blah blah, was because I think that he was just doing what he thought was necessary in the experience. I don't think that he thought that he could propose to his own girlfriend until he saw Hunter do it. And then he was like, oh shit, I'm going to propose to my girlfriend. I didn't know that was an option. Exactly. That's my perspective. That's, if I was a betting woman and I was in Vegas, that's what I'd put my money on.
You know.
Yeah, I'm not a betting woman. I lost all my money. I lost all my money. I only gave $200, but that was all of it. It was all of it. Okay. All right. We're moving on.
One at a time.
So let's talk about April. April had a very funny reel in which all of April's like quotes of April talking in the third person was laid out before our eyes. You know, the thing that I'll give April credit for is that there was a lot of different features of this reunion that was sort of like touching April's situation. And she really took all of the jokes really well, or she took a lot of the criticism really well. Like,
Yeah.
you could see when the camera was on her. Yeah, she was laughing at herself, but I'll be honest, I am a little worried about her.
Yeah.
You are?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think she has a good amount of, I think she's really comfortable with herself. I think she knows who she is. She knows what she needs to work on. I think she is really excited to be a mom. So April's one of those women that, like, it sounds to me, just based off of how much I've heard her talking about babies, that her priority is very much, let me find a man to have babies, right?
Yeah, totally.
She still values the relationship, but it's like, it's never like, I want a man to, you know, X, Y, and Z, who I can do this with, who I can have this kind of, you never explain that. It's like, they tell me they love me, they tell me they want to marry me, and we're already talking about babies, right? It's very much like they are committed and they're on my life plan, but there's no consciousness around, you know. And so this is what the relationship is, my last thought of that sentence, or last word of that sentence. So my concern for her is that I think she's going to achieve the things she wants in life. She's that kind of girl. But on the other side, are those things, is she setting herself up for success by making intentional decisions leading to the goal that she wants to achieve? Or is she settling for certain people in her life to get to the end goal that she wants to achieve? Right? So that's why I'm worried about her a little bit. What about you?
Yeah, I can appreciate that. That's a bit of an in-depth view of likely like how she's gotten to a place where she's, you know, she's separate from Jake. It seems like they tried to stay together a little bit,
but not really.
We're going to talk about that. That is all fucking we'll weird. Get there. But I think what you're talking about supports what my concern is, which is April, like, relationship jumping. Yes. You know, like, I think it would have been really important for April to, like, take the opportunity to, like, watch the show once it aired, because I do think that if this show was good for any of these people as individuals, it was the ability to watch themselves in their own, like, shitty patterns with their partners. And I do think that that's very valuable. It had to have been very uncomfortable. I don't want to do it, but I wish that she sort of, like, took in the stock of, like, of what she was trying to build on, or at least she was trying to let us know as an audience that she was, like, aware that she needed to build on, which was, like, how do you not steamroll your relationship so that you just are only going towards what you want? Like,
right.
I guess I'm not totally sold, and I don't have enough information to support this, but my instinct is I'm not totally sold that April is in a relationship with someone who together the two of them are discovering that they have shared goals, versus she has found someone that is far more willing to reassure her and go along with all of the plans that April has in order to give her everything that she wants. Not saying that that's inherently a bad thing. I just, like, I think that April would do a more of a service to herself if she were a better, like, a more skilled listener and was more comfortable, like, moving at a slower pace. Because even when she went back to living with Jake while on the show, she's steamrolling their progression, and she's, like, really trying to move it way, 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 way forward. And it's like she's trying to rush through the conflict, even though she's participating in a lot of the conflict. And it's sort of like, you need to slow down. She's already living with this other dude.
I know. Yeah. So. I'm with you. Yeah. A lot of times people, you know, it's funny. I was having this conversation with one of the clients at the hotel the other day. It was such a cool, there's this client that's coming in later this year. Anyway, they're really cool chicks because they love to talk about trauma. So I was like, you're my kind of people.
My kind of people.
We were talking about one of them has a mom who very much is similar to April, like relationship hop, hasn't been single for a day in her life type thing. And there's so much danger with with that because one, you don't know who you really are. It reminds me of Runaway Bride. Did anyone see that movie with Julia Roberts and Richard Gere? It is Richard Gere.
Yes, but not
like
it is Richard Gere, but not in 2 decades. Wait, no, not
well,
Richard Gere. Steve Martin.
No, it's not Steve Martin. It's definitely not because I'm a huge Steve Martin.
Julia Roberts, that's true. Julia Roberts and Richard Gere are in 2 movies together, and one of them is
Pretty Woman and Runaway Bride.
Does he play her dad?
No.
Okay.
He plays her lover. Okay, but look, there's a version. There's a scene in Runaway Bride where it's 100% Richard Gere. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you,
Sorry.
Google. Okay, there's a scene where he makes this exact point. He's like, you don't know who you are. And he starts talking about the eggs she likes to order for breakfast. He's like, with this guy it was scrambled, with this guy it was poached, with this guy it was over medium, with this guy it was sunny side up. Like he's making the point of like you are a chameleon, and I say that all the time. Like you become a professional chameleon when you don't know who you are, but you're so desperate to be chosen, you just hop from relationship, becoming whoever you think this new person wants you to be. And so it'll show up in little surface things like that. Like, oh yeah, my favorite music is this, or my favorite breakfast is this now, just to have something to agree with this new connection. And so I'm so with you with April. Like, I think she's comfortable with who she is. She knows like her things that she needs to work on. I do not think she's genuinely like clear on what her values are for her ideal relationship and how to go about qualifying the people she dates to get that standard. You know what I mean? It's just like, it is a crapshoot for April. She is in Vegas. Like, who's the next guy? Let's try it. You know?
Let's roll the dice, baby.
Roll the dice.
Yeah. She's young. I know that she's got things to consider regarding her health in order to have children. But you know what? I don't want to tell her what I think that she should do. If I were her, only if I were in her position, I personally would choose to have a private conversation with my doctor and figure out what my options are. You mentioned egg freezing earlier. I don't know if that's an option available to her with the PCOS that she has and whatever else might be going on. But I would figure out like, okay, I'm not in a relationship right now. I can't have kids right now. What are my options in order to have kids on the timeline that makes most sense for me with the partner that I hope I would be co-parenting with, either together or separately? That's what I would do personally.
Yeah. She reminds me of Lindsay a little bit from Married at First Sight, not because of their energy, but because they know who they are, and yet they still fall prey to their self-sabotage. It's that interesting of a dynamic.
Don't we all? Don't we all?
I think a lot of people are unaware
of their self-sabotaging patterns.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's like, this comes up for me a lot because you're either like, it's either really hard for you to be aware of your self-sabotaging patterns, which I do think is like more of the norm, or you are painfully aware. That comes easy, and it is a fucking curse. It's like a gift and a curse, right? But I think I'm doing. Exactly. That's me. I'm like, and I'm always like trying to be a little bit aware of my patterns because I don't want my patterns to be the thing that stops me or gets in the way of the things that I would want out of my life, or to have like the beautiful life that I want to have. However, I do think that people are pretty good at ignoring what their patterns are because like ignorance is bliss.
True. Yeah.
It's much easier, quote, easier to just like go on about your business and engage in the same patterns in your relationships and just lean in to what you think is right all of the time instinctually without any reflection. So
that's actually, so my ADHD brain totally jumped from the topic, but the client that I was alluding to before I went off on the Runaway Bride thing, that's exactly what they said. They're like, they were saying it was easier for their parents to jump into another relationship than face their inner demons, because it's like, I'm already in pain. So like, is facing my demons even more pain? I'll just go into this relationship and try and ignore all of that. And let me tell you, the more you do that, the more painful it is that when you do finally decide to heal. Because It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Like, no one's coming to save you except yourself. So it's like, yeah.
All right. I agree. I totally agree.
That was a thorough, I liked that combo.
Deep dive. Okay. So on the topic of April, we have Jake and Ray. And we can't talk about Jake and Ray without talking about Ray and Zay. So we're gonna navigate the whole quartet. April, Jake, Ray, Zay.
I feel like you just rapped a little there. A little bit.
I did. I forgot what I said.
It was no. It was just like all these rhyming names. It was great.
Yeah, true. They made it easy for me. So there's a little bit of confusion, and this led to like a blow up. But like apparently Ray and Zay got back together after the show wrapped. If that's what happened, which I'm not surprised that happened. I'm not surprised that anyone would like come like get off the show. But then why did we see Jake and Ray, Zay and Ray get back together? Why did we see Jake and Ray have a moment where they don't ride off into the sunset, but they do trail off into the woods? Why do we see that? Why do we see them do that?
Yeah, dude. So here, full transparency, here's what I think happened. Just like understanding human behavior and breakup science of like what happens to your brain and shit. Here's what I think happened. Jake, one thing we've learned about Jake, especially after this reunion, is like, boy is still growing up. He's 27. Go ahead and grow up, dude. No judgment at all. I get that you don't know what you want at the age of 27. Especially with that new haircut. Like, come on.
Yeah.
What the heck?
It's good bangs.
So, anyway, so I can't right now. Okay, here. Back to being professional. So I think Jake panicked. I think he was like following the new shot of dopamine and was like, Ray, excited, endorphins, yes. Following the dick pleasure, right? Like,
he's trying to get fucked.
Cool.
There's been tension. There's been buildup.
So much tension.
For weeks.
Yeah. And things clearly are, grass is greener because of what's been happening in his relationship with April. So like, rose-colored glasses on, okay? And so reality sets in after they wrap, and he very quickly is like, oh shit, I don't really know what I want. Ray also is like, commitment, let's go. And he probably was like, deuces, that's too much for me right now. And because Ray is like, well, what does that mean about me and my worth? I'm going to go back to Zay. Like, I really feel like that's what happened. Because, like, the reality is that it's really funny going through my own breakup right now and self-witnessing all of this and you hearing about it quite often. But, this fading effect bias that happens in our brain where we start to romanticize the relationship that we just left and completely ignore all of the reasons why the breakup happened to begin with. So, fun tip. When you first go through a breakup, and yes, I very much did this, write down everything that was negative about the relationship so you can remind yourself why it took place when those moments come up. Not to be mean, but for your own withdrawals, quite literally, for your own withdrawals to keep yourself in check. So anyway, Ray isn't a client of mine, so she didn't do that. And so she starts to, romanticize her relationship with Zay and focus on all the wonderful time they had together and the years that the other thing is a sunk cost fallacy. I already invested so much of my time into this person. I need to be with them. Otherwise it's time wasted. So she goes back to Zay and holy cow, Batman, that was just another super toxic merry-go-round cycle for them to go on. It sounds like. Because that argument,
it was bad. So they ended up arguing over the fact that Shanique had told Randall that she and Zay had sex on the show, or they had gotten intimate. They didn't really explicitly say it, but just for argument's sake, they fucked, they boned, they told each other about it. And Zay did not tell Ray that. So they ended up fighting about that. And it doesn't even matter what they were fighting about, because I think that the two of them, exactly as you said, they're having relationship withdrawals. They go back to each other. They're trying to make it work. They don't know how to make it work. They don't know how to improve on the things that have kept them apart this so far up until this point. So they come back to each other. It was really only a matter of time for them to blow up over whatever it is that they were going to have a conflict over. It didn't have to be the sexual experience with Shanique. It didn't have to be the fact that they were together that whole time, and Ray is like not being super clear and saying that they've been together that whole time. Like, it didn't matter what it was. The fact is that the two of them fell into exactly the same patterns that they are always in together, and they really had a hard time. Here's the thing about like relationships. Even if you as an individual are trying to make changes in your patterns, whether it's how you're trying to communicate in conflict, or it's how you're trying to express love or show affection, or whatever it is, relationships tend to have like grooves and tracks that we are very easily able to just sort of like fill right into and find ourselves gravitating towards. And it's not because we are unable to change. It's just that we can't be on hyper aware, fully in control of making all of the changes in all of our behaviors all at once, all of the time. So we end up having, like, when our emotions like rise, we tend to just fall in line, and then you're doing that dance with the same person that you're used to doing it with in your old patterns. It's very hard to get out of. It takes a lot from both people to get onto the same page, to be able to be like, this is when we said that we were going to do this differently. Let's pull back. Let's try something else. If you don't have both people on that wave, you have to be each other's teammates, even when you're in conflict. Then it's going to be really hard to break those patterns. Really hard.
Yeah. Absolutely. So it's like, I love how you put it. All relationships have grooves and tracks. You know, I use the gym analogy all the time because I think it's something that a lot of people can wrap their brain around, but it's the same thing with relationships and the dynamics that present themselves. So it's like, we all have this idea, and we know if we want to be healthy, if we want to live longer lives, working out is something that's a benefit, right? You obviously feel better. Your organs are operating at their optimal level. You know, you feel better, you look better, all of that. You have better energy. You obviously have happy hormones. There's so much that working out does for your body. That's a good thing, but you don't do it once and ta-da, right? It is a consistent I went to the gym, I did a squat, look at my peach, okay?
Yeah.
I wish it was like that. No, okay? It is not that. And so it is the same thing when it comes to breaking our patterns. It is not good enough to be like, I went and saw a therapist, I worked with a coach. Cool. And it's a lifestyle. It really is a lifestyle. This is why, like, every day I talk about emotional regulation. I'm sure, I annoy people with it, but it's the truth. If you're nervous, for me with healing, like, if your nervous system isn't going along for the journey, it's so much easier to snap back to what's familiar to you. And so you bet your butt I don't miss a day of regulating in some way, shape, or form, because I know if I don't, I will be more irritable. I know if I don't, my anxiety will catch up to me. I know if I don't, fill in the blank for you, right? Like, it is a lifestyle, just like going to the gym, for all of the wonderful benefits. And to Bree's point, it takes two people to do that in a relationship dynamic. So
I'm laughing a little because I'm thinking your relationship with emotional regulation and regulation in general is very similar to me and my relationship with Metamucil. Like, we need each other. I am keeping the brand Metamucil alive in stores everywhere across this great nation. I need it. It's a lifestyle. I truly need it. My life is better with it. She's somewhere over here. There she is.
Hey girl.
Hey girl.
You're welcome to this party. My magnesium is here for the same end result.
Lifestyle.
Different issues. Yeah.
Different issues. It's a lifestyle, but no, I love that. I love that analogy. I do think that it's the work. That's why people say that relationships are hard. It's because this is another analogy that you had used on the show a number of weeks back. But we come from two different places. We end up coming into our relationships speaking two different languages, and that's more of a figurative speech here, but it's like, so you can't expect that the two of you are going to be able to fight or resolve conflict or even get out of your own ways in the same way. So you have to work really, really, really hard. And so that's what we see Ray and Zay sort of fall into, and then inevitably like get out of it and realize that like they can't be together. I have to give Ray a lot of credit here, especially because of how much time on air we have called out her behavior. And I'm not going to take any of that back. But what I'll say is that I saw her really reflect, really identify a lot of the challenges that she was having, her lack of emotional expression with her partner, who was really asking a lot of that from her. I'd love to hear her perspective on that. She didn't make excuses for it either. She really didn't. And so if there's anything I am going to take back is some of the like without emotional awareness, or rather without empathy, like calculated moves. We all are like, we have the ability to be calculated. It's not necessarily like with or without empathy, but like, I do think that she wasn't aware of what she was doing. And in the moments that she struggled the most was like expressing herself. And Zay, she's saying like, I was just looking at you blankly, and that was so hard for me to see because I knew exactly how I was feeling and I didn't know how to say it, you know?
Yeah.
So,
which a lot of folks struggle with. And that's why I love the wheel of emotion, AKA the feeling wheel, because it's such a great tool for just building up a vocabulary of emotion language. Right. So hot tip, if that's something that you struggle with, I have mine on my phone and will absolutely use it sometimes when I'm like, what is this that's coming up for me? Because it's like 10 emotions in one.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, you know, a part of me, we learned that Ray is bi in this reunion, and I am so proud of her for owning that. And a part of me is wondering if maybe that's why she struggled to express her feelings for Zay and how she, what she wanted and what she needed. Because, that was like a well-kept secret. Like, I don't even think, to my knowledge, throughout the show, we never even hear a hint of that. And then, in this reunion, she expresses, I dated my first girlfriend and she was great. And I love that for her. But it wouldn't surprise me, when someone is kind of struggling with their orientation and, there's unfortunately a lot of shame around it, depending on the environment you grew up in, society and blah, blah, blah. A part of me wonders if that's why we saw a lot of what we saw from her, is because she was trying to live, a life that might not be fully true to herself. And I think a lot of sabotaging behaviors come out when we aren't being authentic and we are experiencing self-betrayal, right? Like, she wasn't owning that part of her. Which of course is going to bring up subconsciously a lot of like mixed emotions and like, how do I express myself when I'm holding on to this huge part of me that I can't let the world see, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's hard to know exactly how that could be connected for her, but you can see since like exploring a different part of her self, her identity, dating other people, dating women, she has like been expressing herself a lot more, and just in this reunion, like she's really, it's up. And so I think at the end of the day, it's like, it's really good to see. I mean, the way that her and Zay were fighting, like they weren't getting anywhere because they were talking over each other, but I could see that she had like years of like pent up, not speaking up for herself. So I wish that it wasn't happening over one another, but I was glad to see that she was in a much better place, and that she had taken a lot of time to herself, and that she did seem really happy. And she was expressing herself like quite well. And again, that came in with that self-reflection of what it was like to watch her on the show. And so it seems like she's setting herself up for a lot of really progressive developments in her own life going forward. So that's good.
I have something interesting to say, and then I have a question for you. But okay, my first thing is something I've seen a lot with clients, and even in my own life, is like when you grow up like not speaking up for yourself, not fully expressing yourself. And, I talk about many scientifically proven methods, but I also go into chakra work because it's a version of spirituality that has really helped heal my relationship with myself in multiple different ways. But when I see folks that struggle with opening up and actually like standing up for themselves, and like I said, requesting their needs to be met, and that throat chakra is really tight, it's fully closed, it's locked down, and then they start to heal, and it becomes what Ray is experiencing right now, which is like word vomit, right? It's like all of this time, like it's finally coming out, and then you're on the opposite end where it's almost over communication. It's not helpful, but there's progress there, and so it's like what I've seen in healing with cases like Ray, it's like they're on one end of the spectrum, which is they're utterly silent, and then they're on the other where they're overly like lashing out.
Ooh,
and then they find the balance. So it's like, you know, I'm just happy to see that she's actually, there's difference there, right? Like there's growth there. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
My question for you, because I was talking to someone else about this yesterday, is it bothers me, and I'm curious to know what your opinion is, when someone is like, I can acknowledge that I did this, but they never say, I'm sorry, or I apologize. So the reason I bring this up in context is Zay says, I take full responsibility for not telling you about, you know, my relations with Shanique. But he never says, and even Ray literally was like, I don't want you to apologize for hooking up with her. I want you to apologize for not telling me.
Not telling me.
And I thought that was profound. But he didn't.
Yeah.
So what's your opinion?
My opinion on that, without me weighing in on what I think is most appropriate, I think why people do that is to show that they are like aware of the behavior, but they don't necessarily feel like it's something that they needed to apologize for.
I don't like
you know
that.
What I mean?
Because I understand.
I know, but like
that. I just feel in this context he should, because it's deceitful.
Well, so that's why I prefaced it with me saying like what I think is without me weighing in, because I'm sitting here and I agree. Like I think like if he could acknowledge that it was something that he did, and he like knew that an apology was needed, like give it. But also like we shouldn't be apologizing for things that we don't think that we should be apologizing for, right? Not to say that I want that to be clear and honest and authentic. I want apologies to be authentic. So if someone's not giving you an apology that you believe that you earned, I want people to know that they're not getting the apology, and I want us to take that information in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can think in my own life about moments in which I am reflecting on behavior that I know that I did. I have an awareness of it. And maybe it's not something that this other person liked, but I don't feel from my perspective, or really maybe just by my own values and my own code, that I needed to apologize for it. And if that's not going to work for them, I want, that's a different layer to it. It's a new development.
Yeah. And then it's up to the person not receiving the apology to figure out if that's okay with them or not. So like what comes to mind for me is like, let's say you set a boundary around like, I don't text back, or like, for example, let's say you're texting someone and it's been like 3 hours because you're busy, or maybe you just didn't feel like texting back right away. We don't need an excuse to, live our lives. All right. And if that person gets upset and is like, you should be texting me back faster. Ooh, that rubs me the wrong way. And I can say like, I absolutely understand how that makes you feel, but I don't necessarily, like you're not entitled to my time. You're not entitled to me texting you back. I don't owe that to you. So if someone were to come at me, I would very much validate them, but I wouldn't necessarily apologize depending on the context, right?
Yeah,
I didn't do anything wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so if I'm on the other side of that, and I'm the one sending you the text of like, hey, Alex, you should really be reaching out to me more. I don't know why you're ignoring me. It seems really disrespectful of my time. And you're like, hold up. I can appreciate why that makes you feel the way that you're expressing it makes you feel. But that's not my, I'm not going to be living my time just to like accommodate yours. And for me, like, it's for me to choose like, okay, what do I want to do with that information? Is this my deal breaker for our dynamic, our agreement, our relationship? It's not, by the way. I don't expect you to text me back ever.
Yeah, that's something I actually really value about our friendship, because it's like I feel comfortable with that, because it's like I know
100%.
like she'll respond when she
100%.
has the time to respond, and I know you give me that same freedom.
Oh yeah, girl. Listen, if we knew it was urgent, we got to send sirens, we got to send smoke bombs, we got to put the red light emoji and say, wee woo, wee woo, wee woo. It's time to answer.
I love that SpongeBob. Patrick, woo woo. Oh my God, we're such millennials. But in the context of Zay, bringing it back to the ultimatum, me personally, I do feel that, I'm on Ray's side of this argument, but clearly Zay feels that she wasn't entitled to that information. What I also don't like was the projection, because that's what Ray really was like pissed about, was like, you were so, every time, like, you wouldn't drop it. You kept coming after me for hooking up with Jake, and we didn't cross the same lines that you crossed. So and I'm with her. Like, that's not okay. That's just not okay.
Totally. Yeah. I fully agree. Yeah. So it seems like Zay is taking time for himself, which I think is appropriate. It was really interesting. I don't think that we really saw much of Shanique reflecting on her relationship with Zay. I don't have any notes about it.
No. The only thing we really heard... Oh, sorry, girl. Go ahead.
I was going to say that we saw... You go.
Jesus. The only thing we heard from Shanique was that they did get intimate, which was a surprise. We didn't know that. They, throughout the season, they did not hint at that. Did they hint at that? Did I miss it?
There was an episode. So, okay, so you know the clip.
The black and white bed. They did. I forgot.
Remember there was a little strokey stroke? God. A little hand under the sheet action? Yeah.
I forgot. But the second you did, it came flooding back.
Yeah. Okay. That's why Ray was like, listen, like, if that was something that happened between Jake and, like, there wasn't any clips of us doing that because it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Tra-la-la.
Got you. So Alex forgot about that. So she was surprised. There we go. Third person when she was watching.
It's okay. We're building on your reel. We're building on.
Oh, there's so much shame now.
No worries, girl.
Oh God. You guys hold me accountable.
It was interesting to see that Shanique said that she would have picked Colby. I would have stopped the whole show and said, "Tell me more about why." Yeah. Are you sure? What do you mean?
Watching it back,
really? Like even after everything, you would it just doesn't make any sense to me.
He must be really charming in RL. He must be.
I think it came from a place of, well, let's think about this. She was already with Randall. She chose Zay. She clearly didn't love how that went. Who were her other options? Nate and Hunter were gone. Who else? Jake. Maybe Jake wasn't her type.
Yeah.
So she would have picked Colby?
I guess. I don't know. Whatever.
Shit doesn't make any sense to me. Anyway, okay.
So her and Randall.
This is
very interesting. Yeah.
This is our final recap of Ultimatum. Yeah. Shanique and Randall. I know.
Okay. It's a good one to go out on.
Yeah, agreed. They broke up. For 6 months. I think that they found how they described it. I love them. I really do love them.
Yeah.
How they described it is they came back from the show and a lot of the similar patterns that they had been trying to work themselves out of were reemerging in their relationship still. We don't know exactly what happened, but obviously got in the way of their, them being happy, them moving forward with wedding stuff, family stuff, whatever. So much so that they decided to take a break. I'm curious to learn if that break was intended to be a break. No, you know what? It probably was understood by both of them as a final breakup because they, doesn't seem like Randall dated other people, but Shanique dated other people.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. And then, you go.
I mean, Nick Lachey and Vanessa, right? That's her name, Vanessa Lachey. I always forget.
Yep.
Yeah. They both talk about how they did that. You know, they broke up, dated other people, realized what they were missing, which is like, I have mixed feelings about this because on the one hand, it's like, I totally get wanting to be on your own when you're just busy with life and trying to work on stuff internally. Like, I get it. It's nice to be able to take off your list of laundry, like to-do list of expectations, like removing the hat of being someone's girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever while you're trying to work on other things. I get the value in that. I really do. I also understand the value of being in a relationship and growing together, because a lot of the things that trigger you in a relationship, you don't get to experience or navigate when you're single, obviously. So, I have mixed feelings about it because on the one hand, clearly it worked for them. Like Shanique, like you said, she dated a few other people. Randall was going through a really hard time. It sounds like he lost a lot of people in the span that they were apart. And so that's where his energy was just focusing on like maintaining himself through that experience. And, they came back together and it sounds like they really appreciate what each other brings to the table now. I do think that it could be the right person at the wrong time of life or at the wrong time of your own growth and development. And I think I said this last week, I'll say it again, the conversation that needs to happen if you do decide to come back together before you come back together is, what are we going to do differently this time? And, it sounds like they really took the time to figure their own stuff out. And it sounds like they're implementing better versions of themselves or stepping into better versions of themselves this go around.
And I think watching the show helped them, as we were mentioning earlier. Like, I think for the two of them, this is what I believe, even though they broke up and then they got back together, this is what I believe is contributing to the success that Shanique and Randall have and likely will continue to have, which is the two of them had already started talking about what they needed to do differently before they even got on the show. They either were in therapy or they were trying to have these conversations on their own. So that, because, you see them having conversations being like, that's one of the things that we said we were going to work on. They've clearly already started to have the introspective relationship discussions of like, what do we both need to be doing differently in order to make this better? Obviously, we find them fall back into those grooves while they're on the show. They spend time with other people. Shit gets weird. They come back together. They fall in love again. They do the thing. They get engaged. And we love that for the show. We had to see an engagement somewhere. Sorry, I'm rolling my eyes because I immediately had a flash image of like Colby and Madeline getting married. And I hated it all over again.
I know.
And, reality sets in. And I just think that like they had already started those conversations so that by the time they were watching themselves, they were seeing everything that they were already trying to fucking talk about. And so that must have really locked it in. That's my assumption.
I agree. And if there's anything for us to take away from that, it's exactly that. Like,
videotape yourself as a couple.
Yeah, videotape. Earlier when you said, I get the value in it, but I would not, something I don't want to do. I was like, that's totally something I could do or could have done when living.
I was talking about going on a show.
Okay, no. But still, I wouldn't want to do it even not on a show. Like putting a Ring camera in here. Like, God, how uncomfortable is that? But it is helpful, like, to be able to see. And I do think that, like, recording your audio, like, during an argument might be really helpful. One, because it puts you both on your best behavior because you know that you're being recorded. And two, being able to listen back to it and say, like, ooh, this is what you said that triggered me this way. So, like, it's nice. But my point here that I want to kind of open up with Shanique and Randall is, like, it's not a matter of whether or not relationships will have these kinds of conversations. The truth is that every healthy relationship does have these conversations. So it's like, cause it's a requirement. Like, you need to be able to know, like, what do I need to work on? Who do I need to become to allow for more stability, more grace, more comfort, more compassion within this relationship, right? And same with your partner. And, you know, and that's why it's like this idea of like, I can't be in a relationship with someone who wants to change me. It's like, if you're growing for the better, into a better version of you, that's a good thing. That's what a healthy relationship inspires you to do, right?
Yeah.
It's when you're changing yourself to, like I said before, become a chameleon because you want to be accepted by this person. So you're going to like whatever kind of eggs they like, right? Or whatever music they like. That's not the healthy version of change. You know?
Yeah, of course. Of course.
And so I agree with you. Like, the reason that they have continued to be successful, even through breaking up, is because the conversation is around, this is on me, this is what I need to do, right? And the other person saying, and this is what's on me, and this is what I need to do, right? Not sitting there being, Shanique, I'm going to watch you. Are you doing that? Randall, you need to do this, Randall, right? When you are so focused on, when you are so focused on observing what your partner isn't doing right and how they're contributing to the problem without any consideration, or even, let me say it like this, without equal consideration for how you're contributing to the dynamic, red flag. It's not going to work. It's never going to work.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, speaking of red flags.
Okay.
Our final ultimatum red flags.
My final ultimatum red flag is Colby not once was like, you know, the lesson I learned from this, and this is how I've grown. Like, I didn't get that from him at all. Red flag.
Yeah, actually, hard yes on that. Like,
it was, did you see, look what I did to her uterus?
Yeah, that was gross. That was really gross. I wish I could give a red flag to Vanessa and Nick Lachey for not
why can't
not grilling them. I want to, because I needed Colby to address some stuff, but again, I think it was like it was all too perfect. It was all too perfect. Okay, I'm gonna give a red flag to April. Generally, my sense is April's doing a lot of telling and not showing. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. She's doing a lot of telling and not showing of like her doing like work. And maybe my assumption is just coming from a place of seeing that she's already in another relationship that's moving quite quickly. But I'll die on that hill. I will.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Green flag. My green flag is with Shanique being really upfront and honest about her time apart from Randall, and how it's really allowed her to appreciate who he is and what he brings to the table in their relationship. Because I do feel that she was missing that at the end of the Ultimatum show. Like,
agreed.
She was so focused on like, I want him to want me, I want him to love me, I want him to want to be with me, that she very much forgot about like, this is why I value him. This is why I want him so bad. Like, let me rest in this attitude of gratitude for him instead of being so focused on how he can appease me. Right?
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So I'm really happy that she's there.
Yeah. And that's like, she's had to let go of her engagement marriage timeline. Which sometimes removing that milestone, which we should always be critical of what the milestone really represents in our lives. But removing the milestone actually gave her more room to look and focus on the relationship and her partner in particular. Totally agree.
Totally.
Yeah. My green flag's going to go to Ray, which
I
is
love it though. She deserves it.
Yeah, I think that Ray is in some really good stages of her personal growth. I love that she's in a new relationship. I love that she's exploring her bisexual identity. I think that she is starting to open up that throat chakra, as you said, and I'm excited to see that, like, what that brings to her in her life going forward.
Yeah, girl, pop off. So stoked for her. I really am. Honestly, I think Ray had the biggest character arc out of all of this.
My God, yes.
She started off with so many red flags with how she was like withholding from Zay, and like I was like, what kind of like I was really concerned about like who she was, but now like seeing the entire picture and the entire season and where she is now, I'm like, girl, go off. Like I'm glad that she's finally living life on Ray's terms and not the terms of her boyfriends or her father or whatever. It's like, girl, you deserve to explore your bisexual identity, like you said, to be able to actually enjoy women and like enjoy yourself and see what you like and see what you desire instead of trying to like force yourself to fit this hole. You know what I mean? So, oh my God,
I think her and Shanique have definitely had like big character arcs. I wanted to ask you before we like wrap it up, because they ask an interesting question on the reunion of like, who do you think learned the least? And I'm surprised that no one chose Colby. They said Nate, which I don't think is totally fair considering like he really wasn't on the show for very long. We really don't know what his like internal dialogue is, but my vote's Colby. I think Colby learned the least. The least.
Yeah. I'm with you. I'm with you on that. I think they picked Nate because he's an easy target and Colby's like one of the gang, so they weren't gonna like, you know, pinpoint one of their own. I also
he's about to be a dad.
Not helpful, right? If all the times to be called out in your life, it should be before you're bearing children and, you know, curating a life. I don't get that, but whatever.
True.
Yeah, I'm with you. Colby, like I said, there's a lack of ability, like Madeline said, there is a lack of ability of being able to own up to his part in things, and that is going to be some shaky ground for the foundation of the relationship and fatherhood.
Yeah,
you know?
Agreed.
How is he going to model apologies to his kid?
Ooh, that's really important. We should always be able to model apologies to children.
Yeah,
it's really important for kids to hear, I'm sorry.
To Madeline, yeah, what kind of father is he going to be?
We're coming for you.
Yeah. All the way. Austin, Texas, you said? That's where this is filmed?
Yeah, I think so. We're coming for you. And your little hat.
And your cowboy hat.
Okay.
So...
in the coming weeks, we're doing Love Island UK. We're so excited.
I'm so excited to be in the villa.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be on the island, dude. Give me some trashy trash. And some good chats.
And some great chats. I am going to be popping off all of the island scents in my home. I'm going to make it a vibe when I watch Love Island. It's going to be a thing.
I love that.
Yeah. Ooh. It's going to be a thing.
Okie doke. Well, you know the drill. If you want to reach out to us and ask us a question or apply to have a mini session live with us, you can go to our website, ditchthescriptpod.com. You can follow our social media accounts on TikTok and Instagram, Ditch the Script Pod. Until then, see you later.
See you on the next one. Love you guys. Bye.
Bye.